If the only dialogue they're getting, and a lot of our students are so addicted to these things, that's all of their interaction. They don't have interaction with other folks, other people, including their parents, including their teachers. And so it's very important for us to have those conversations. There is no greater resource in the world than our smartphones and our ability to access content, materials, and information instantly. On the flip side of that, there is no worse tool to lead kids down the wrong path and to create all of these issues that we're having to deal with.
You're listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. This is our District Talk segment where we interview district leaders to learn how they're keeping students safe on social media. And we also ask them questions that we get from parents all over the country in our program. Now, let's get back to the interview.
My name is Paul Green. I'm a superintendent of Carter County Schools in Northeast Kentucky. We're about 30 miles west of Huntington, West Virginia. We have about 4,000 students in our school district, 10 schools, and a career tech center.
Superintendent, it's so great to have you here today. I'm excited in the new year of 2025 to talk about how we can keep students safe on these devices so they can someday be successful and shine online. Now, every one of our listeners right now, whether you are a superintendent, a district leader, staff, or even most importantly, a parent wanting to protect your kiddos, or maybe you work for a parent-teacher organization as a volunteer, we're so excited to have you. As you know, Smart Social keeps students safe and successful so they can someday brand themselves online in a responsible way with the parents being ready for it and along their side. All right, Superintendent, we have a great lineup for you here today, and I'm so excited to have you. You know, the first question that I really have for you today is I want to hit on the topic of parent participation, and I want to ask you, what are your suggestions for other school districts to increase parent engagement? And are there any specific channels or events that get the biggest turnout?
Well, for me personally, anytime I get in front of groups, and when I say that, even things like our graduation ceremonies, in which we have all of our student and parent populations that are engaged in those type of situations, I always mention social media because it is such a huge component in all of our students and communities' lives. It's always important that we bring that up. We talk about social media. We talk about how we use that and how we use it for the positive good of our society, and making sure that we become good citizens in how we utilize these social media. It's a tricky thing. There's a lot of positives to it, but it can also be very hard to deal with.
Yeah, so true. My next question for you, Superintendent, is about shining online. What advice do you have for parents and students to help students use social media in a positive way?
Well, the first thing I always advise people is, and this is what my advice to everybody, social media needs to be handled as if every day is April Fool's Day. If everyone would go into social media and their interactions on social media as if it's April Fool's Day, I think that it would help everybody out tremendously. On April 1st, when we hear news or we see things online, the first thing we do is we're skeptical of that. The first thing we do, we step back, we look at it, we examine that. Is this real? Is this the truth? I fact check that. I make sure that what I'm hearing is sound. I go to multiple sources, and then I come to a conclusion of, oh, this is real. What happens on social media is the biggest issue that I have with it is when people see it. If it was on social media, it's true. And they go with it, and it doesn't matter what it is, how absurd or crazy some of the ideas and concepts that are being thrown around out there are. We get it all the time. We get phone calls, hey, we hear you got litter boxes in your schools. Where did you hear that? Well, we saw it on social media. Well, that's not true. And it's just those type of things that we always feel like that if we could just get people to just do that, treat everything they see with a little bit of skepticism, that would go a tremendous way to helping us out.
That's one of the best tips I've heard in the last year, Superintendent. I got to be honest with you, because at first I was like, wait, April Fool's Day. But what I wrote down is really ask, is this real? Be skeptical and fact check it. What a great idea. It's April Fool's Day. We all know what that's like. Something's too good to be true. I absolutely love that tip. That is an absolute winner. So thank you for that. Now, for all of our viewers, parents are often asking us, and we pulled a couple slides out of our parent night events, Josh, what makes these apps so addictive? Well, for our viewers right now, let's hear from some real students as they explain why they can't stop scrolling.
I think the most addictive part about social media is the constant new content that you see. You're always being introduced to new content, especially on apps like TikTok. I think the short videos, when they end so quick, you start to lose your ability to have a longer attention span. I've caught myself finding long TikTok videos and I can't stand watching the whole thing.
This generation really adapted to the fact that we don't have a large attention span. We really only concentrate for 30 seconds. So getting information that quickly, I think, enables us to just want to keep watching more. You don't even need to care about what they're presenting to you, but just the fact that you can sit there and watch it and you're oddly enjoying it. Social media is pretty addictive. People said it's like a drug. So it is addictive because you can't stop watching it. Your mind just plays on loop and it enjoys the fulfillment of everything firing in your brain to just keep watching.
So sad. And as you see, the students, everyone, constant new content, short videos, trained to have a short attention span. Even these students under the age of 25, they say we're not quite adults yet, according to psychologists, therapists, counselors, people way smarter than me. But even these students are aware of this. So fascinating. The next question we get to all of our viewers right now in my parent night events put together by the incredible Smart Social team is, Josh, is social media positive or negative for my kiddo in the long run? Well, let's hear from a student and find out why they think the video apps, in addition, are not only so addictive, but why they're a heartless beast.
Part of what makes social media so addictive is how the algorithms are based on using content to judge whether or not someone's worthy, and using people's short attention spans to evaluate them as pieces of code, which also means that social media doesn't really care about your opinion, but really what keeps you on that platform longer, whether that's from likes, comments of engagement, sharing it to other people, or even just watching it through. The algorithm judges you as a piece of data and whether or not someone should be praised for being controversial or thrown away for not being exciting enough, even if they're pouring their heart and soul into the content. It is a heartless beast. When I spend too much time on social media, that can look like being happy because something really cool happened in my friend's life. They went hiking. A friend I saw snow for the first time a couple of days ago, and it can make me feel really happy and energized. But other times, it can just be really draining. It can be really negative. It depends who I'm following. It depends what's being posted.
So interesting. To all of our parent viewers, listeners, and everybody else who's supporting Smart Social, let's get back to our amazing guest, Superintendent. My next question for you is on the topic of screen time, which most superintendents, and I've got about 165 or 6th episode as of time of this recording, they often say, Josh, if we could get rid of this screen addiction on screen time, we wouldn't even be having a podcast. None of this would exist. So my question for you is, what are your tips that parents can do to better manage screen time at home?
Well, the first thing I want to say to parents is our students, we've always had bullying has always been a thing. Students have always dealt with trauma. They've dealt with mental health issues because of, different things that's happened at home or food insecurities or just all the different things. What social media does, and I'm kind of piggybacking on what some of these kids stated, was that social media is kind of like it's fuel to the fire. Basically, it's that accelerant that you take something that churns and it's there and it may cause issues. And this social media, you just throw raw gasoline onto that fire and it just explodes that. This is a very difficult question to answer. The short answer is, limit them, put them on time limitations, that type of thing. We deal that from a school perspective and, we get into this, should be ban phones from schools. I feel like it's more important that parents and our schools, we monitor the use of these things. We use them in a more productive way because the reality is they're not going away. The reality is our job as educators is to prepare our students for their futures. The future world we live in, these things are going to exist. These devices exist and social media is going to exist. Now, how that transforms and where that goes, we don't know. But our number one responsibility is to try to figure out how the best way, the most productive way for our students and our children. I have 4 children myself. What is the best way that we can monitor the use? We can assist them. I hate to be pessimistic, but we're kind of fighting a losing battle because we're fighting against, again, what these kids said. We're fighting against AI. We're fighting against algorithms, computer algorithms that are truly targeting these students' interest and likes, and they are designed in ways to be addictive. So I don't have a good answer, but I do say that the number one thing is parents need to be aware of their students' usage, how much they're using it, but then also what are the things that they're on and how can we help them be more productive in using these devices?
Yeah, very well said. And I like your approach. There's no one answer and it's not easy. And I'm going to tell people what you kind of are saying without saying it as well, is not only be aware of what your kids are doing, but have a rich dialogue and a good, healthy relationship where they can come to you. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. If the only dialogue they're getting, and a lot of our students are so addicted to these things, that is their interaction. That's all of their interaction. They don't have interaction with other folks, other people, including their parents, including their teachers. And so it's very important for us to have those conversations. And that goes back to some of our educating of the kids of the proper ways to use these devices, to use social media. We're going to be on these things. There is no greater resource in the world than our smartphones and our ability to access content, materials, and information instantly. There is no greater tool in the world. On the flip side of that, there is no worse, maybe not the word enemy is the right word, but no worse tool to lead kids down the wrong path and to create all of these issues that we're having to deal with.
Yeah, so well said. Now, I want to go back over and jump into all of our viewers. Remember, and I want to give a big shout out and a thank you to all the school districts who've partnered with us to keep their parents and students safe in the community. Remember, to all of our partner districts, we host weekly live parent events and replays. Every single week is a world-class event. You saw a couple of the students in there. That's right, we have teen-led video lessons, real teens in there. So if your teens are hearing other teens in the room, parents often say, wow, my son or daughter came in the room and they wanted to listen to the other teens who are the experts that they trust. We also have a premium parent newsletter that's world-class. Here's the steps to all of our current partners. Remember, it's just a two-step process to be wildly successful. Duran Wilson says it was so easy to fit Smart Social's event invites into our monthly newsletter. These events cover the hottest topics that parents care about, so it boosted our parent engagement. And then you come back and review the feedback. Real parents say, I love the information on how to keep track of my kids on the web. My family struggles with time management online. And then here's the outcome. 10 times the parents typically are engaging, and we have decreased incidents for staff. This is what Dylan, one of our amazing principals. Josh, we had 50 social media incidents per year last year before we met you. Now we're down to 5 incidents, and I have more time to be a school principal again. We're trying to roll it back to the 90s before cell phones were here, make principals feel like principals again. That helps superintendents, district staff, and especially parents to really love on their kids. That's our dream. We have weekly events on huge topics, and backed by popular demand, we have bonus events. It's a lot of work. It's really fun. Again, thank you to all the partner school districts, 29 different states, incredible people. We are saving lives. And remember, parents, right now, just a little tiny nuance. A lot of law enforcement have come to us and said, can you please talk about fentanyl a little? And we've said, we don't cover that. And we realize that we do because, unfortunately, kids are buying drugs on all these social media apps. Kids are doing all these things, bullying. We're in the bullying space, the fentanyl space. So having that rich dialogue is so important. And thank you to our many school districts that are using our resources on those topics to help people. Superintendent, I'm back over to you, and I really want to hit on a couple big topics. I want to ask you a question that so many parents have about avoiding strangers in dangerous situations online with students having access to 6 or 7 billion people now with their phones. What is your advice to parents and students to avoid talking with strangers and avoiding dangerous situations online? Example being meeting up with someone you don't know that your parents didn't introduce you to, that isn't from school. They're random because you met them in a video game. You met them in an app, you met them somewhere else.
Well, the first thing is it goes back to that parent engagement and parents having to know what their students and what their children are and what sites they're on, what apps they're engaged in. But it is just so important that the parents understand and know that these things are out there. A lot of times our parents don't even realize that these things are possible. It's like, that can't happen to my child or that doesn't exist. Well, it does exist and it does happen. And again, we don't know who's online. We don't know who those people are. We don't know what type of persona that they're putting online. And that's what we try to educate our kids. When we do have our educational sessions and we talk to kids about the proper use of social media, this is one of the things that come up. And we've had examples of students that have, unfortunately, in a previous district I worked in, we had a student that basically met up with somebody and was kidnapped and was taken away. And it was an older adult that took the kid. And luckily, in this instance, they were found and they're okay. But it was a very tragic incident. And again, it's about educating, and it's so important, parents. You must be aware, know what your students are, what your children are, who they're talking to. It's kind of like in the old day when we were in school, it was don't get in the car with strangers. Now it is don't strike up these conversations, or if you are talking to somebody online, don't meet them. Don't take that next step because you just never know what you're getting yourself into. There is no way to know this person through a social media app.
Yeah, so true. My next question for you, Superintendent, is on the topic of social media incidents, and I think you have a big story for us here. My question for you, and I'd love for you to explain to us what's happened in your community and help parents really understand what could happen in their community if we're not careful. What is your advice to other schools and districts to best get ahead of incidents that might happen off campus that can become a problem on campus?
So we've dealt this year a couple different times. So this year alone, there was a school shooting in Alabama, and it brought up a really big wound that was opened up in our local community. So Carter County School District, East Carter High School actually had a school shooting in 1993. It was one of the earlier school shootings. This predates Columbine and some of the larger school shootings that made the news. This was prior to the internet and prior to the things being mass shared. But here in our local community, we have a lot of our school staff, a lot of our staff members, a lot of our parents of our current students were in the school when this shooting took place. So it is a subject that we take very seriously here in our community. So when we have these type incidences, we then have what we kind of call the copycat kind of situations. And two different things happened in our district, which I'm sure happened in other places, but it was basically, we have one of our schools is West Carter Middle School, and they have the call sign WCMS. Well, 5 years ago in Michigan, there was a school district, a school in Michigan that had a threat made, an online threat that was WCMS, and that threat was handled 5 years ago. Somehow, this fall, after the shooting in Alabama, that post was recirculated in our local community. So we're dealing now with our students circulating a post that says there's going to be a shooting at WCMS tomorrow. And it creates hysteria. Nobody's coming to school, or everybody's wanting us to close school down. So we're reacting to this. We're doing our best to try to find out what's going on. And fortunately for us, we're able to track it down pretty quickly and find the source of this, that it had nothing to do, it was not an active threat. There was nobody in our school district that had made this type of threat, but it was simply somebody somehow brought back to life this old threat that became real for us. That also happened to us not long after that, where there was a school in Texas that was called East High School. And we have the same school, East High School, and it was the same type situation. So again, I go back to the fact checking, April Fool's Day. Where did these things come from? And then it's educating ourselves to don't share things unless we know that it's real. We think we track down the source of like who the first person was, kind of ground zero where it was shared. But these things are so problematic in so many ways. It's the same thing. That's a larger incident for our school, but it's also for like bullying incidents and things like that that happen, in which these things are just shared and they're blown up. And it just creates so many problems for our schools, but also our students. The trauma, people were really scared because of this post that, quite frankly, was a bogus post.
Yeah, so true and so scary. Superintendent, I want to thank you for coming out today. Thanks for your time.
You're welcome. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, it's been great. For all of our listeners, remember the only safety app that's going to keep your kids safe is having a rich dialogue with them so that they can come to you if they see something online. Microsoft isn't going to wake up at 3 a.m. Google's not going to help you. Facebook, nothing against all those big companies, but the only safety app in the world is going to be that rich dialogue you have, that trust you have, so that your kids come to you and you know what they're doing online. We're here at smartsocial.com to help. We're here for you. You go to smartsocial.com, join one of our next events. We give away gift cards when you join and you learn. We call it earning and learning at the same time. I'm Josh Oakes, the host and the author of Light, Bright, Polite. Always remember, what you do online, your kids are watching. We'll see all of you soon. Have a great rest of the day. Take care. Thanks for listening to the smartsocial.com podcast. Smart Social helps parents understand technology and social media to keep their kids safe and successful. Be sure to join one of our weekly online live events to become the smartest parent on the block so you can keep your kids safe and protect their future. Also, don't miss our 450 plus online resources and replays you can watch on demand in multiple languages. Are you a school district wanting to unlock these resources for your parents? Reach out to us so we can protect your whole community each week. Have a great rest of the day, and we'll see you on the next episode.